And
Scott y a
now I
Isabela
would like
Mosselmans,
to
que van a dar
introduce Matthew
una
Scott
breve
and Isabella
presentación de la base
Musselmans, who will give a brief
de datos de cambio
presentation of
climático
the
que va
climate
a lanzar el
change
Consejo Global de
database
Litigio
that will be launched by
Estratégico.
the Global Strategic
Matthew
Litigation
Scott es
Council.
investigador senior
Matthew
y
is a
líder del área
senior
temática de
researcher
derechos
and
humanos y
leader
medio
of the
ambiente
topic
en
area of
el
human
Instituto
rights and
Raoul
the
Wallenberg
environment
de
in the
Derechos
Roel
Humanos y
Wallenberg
Derecho Humanitario.
Human Rights and
También es profesor
Humanitarian
asociado en
Rights
la Facultad de
Institute.
Derecho
He's
de
an
la
associate
Universidad de Londres.
professor
Su
in
trabajo
the
se
University
centra
of
en la
London,
legislación, la política y
and
la
he
práctica basada en
focuses
los
on
derechos humanos en
legislation
relación a la reducción
and
del riesgo
practice
de
human
catástrofes y la
rights and
adaptación
reducing
al cambio climático.
affectations to
Y
be caused by climate change.
Isabela Mosselmans, a lo mejor la
Isabella
conocen, es
Musselmans, you might
mi
know her
colega en
already.
el
She's my
Consejo Global de
colleague in
Litigio
the Global
Estratégico, es la
Strategic
directora
Litigation Council.
ejecutiva.
She's the
Estuvo
executive
en Forbes
director of the
30 Under
council.
30
She
por
was in
impacto
Forbes
social
30 under
y
30
era
for
la
social
co-CEO
impact,
de
and she was co-CEO
una
of
organización de migración en el
a
Reino Unido y
migration
es abogada
organization
de
in the
migración y de
UK.
derechos
She
humanos.
focuses
Le
on
cedo la
migration
palabra
and
a
human
Isabela y a
rights.
Matthew
Thank you, and over to you,
y
Isabella, Matthew,
para la presentación de
for
la base
your
de datos.
presentation of the database.
Hi, Sylvia. Thank you so much for the introduction. I don't know if you're able to just share the slides. That would be great.
Perdón, no sé qué pasó, que la de David se compartió perfecto y
Sorry, I
ahora
don't know
esta no quiere,
what's
pero dame un
happening.
segundo.
I didn't have any problems sharing David's, and for some reason I can't share yours. But give me 1 second to try to figure this out.
Perfect. That seems to have worked. Thanks, Sylvia. And maybe you want to remind people to switch to interpretation if they haven't switched it on already. Brilliant. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's really wonderful to see so many of you here, and I see many familiar names, which is great. Matthew Scott and I are just going to give a very brief presentation on the Climiglaw Database, which is a resource that we've been working on for about over a year now. And again, over a year, council members established climate displacement as one of the priorities of the council. And we realized there was kind of a gap in knowledge or a collective resource that holds all litigation relevant to climate displacement. And so we started to produce and create this database. Sylvia, you can switch to the next slide. As we've talked about and you've heard from Beatrice and David, the climate displacement is a huge and growing issue. There are over 20 million people displaced by climate change each year, and this number is likely to continue to grow. Sylvia, you can go to the next slide. Together with Earth Refuge and the Raoul Wallenberg Institute and the Zollberg Institute, the Council is excited to launch what we hope will be a groundbreaking database of climate displacement litigation. It's currently in beta version, with the full version hoping to be launched at the end of this year or early next year. This database is a public library of global litigation related to climate displacement that civil society and academics and NGOs and lawyers can use to learn from past arguments and experiences, refine their litigation strategies, and work to obtain protection for those who have or may be displaced by climate change, both within borders, so internal displacement, and also across borders. What's unique about it. So my colleague Matthew is going to take you through the beta version of the database shortly. But what we've done and what we will continue to do is we do a rigorous analysis of all the cases to understand how they can be leveraged to advance climate migration litigation and also litigation in relation to internal displacement. And for pending cases where there hasn't been a judgment yet, we will have blogs spotlighting these cases, and we will also have blogs which give insights and analysis from the database on emerging litigation trends across both time and regions. And next year, when the database is fully launched, we'll be running trainings on the database and also regional trainings to start developing strategies to address the issues we see occurring with climate displacement and advance the rights of those displaced. Next slide, Sylvia. So the beta version is now live, and I'm going to hand over to Matthew, who's going to kind of show you this in real time, and we will share a link in the chat, and we will share it afterwards as well with all attendees. It's worth noting that there's an opportunity to feedback on the beta version of the database, and this is at the bottom of the database. You can click on a link to feedback, and Matthew, maybe you can show them that when we go to the live version now. So Sylvia, if you stop sharing, I think Matthew is going to share his screen and show us the database.
Yep. Thanks, Bella. Hi, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. Now I'm just going to try to multitask and get the database up at the same time. You can probably just see my screen, so that's one way to do it. I suspect you can see it now. This is the landing page of, remember, the beta version of the database. So we'll have more bells and whistles and attractive graphics to make the landing soft. But it is, as Bella introduced it, the Climiglaw database, reflecting climate migration in its broadest sense and the legal dimension. We think it is a distinct contribution to what is kind of a growing world of databases. Many will know other databases that connect to climate change litigation. But as Bella said, this is specifically focused on the human mobility dimensions, both cross-border and internal. I'm going to highlight, as we said, can you see there the link? We'll put it in the chat as well. So please do visit the beta version for yourselves. You'll get much more of an experience looking through it. But I thought I would just show a couple of the features through using one specific case. So let's imagine that you are, and I've picked a case in Italy just as an example because it shows some of the features. So imagine you're an Italian lawyer and you're dealing with an application for international protection in that country. One of the things that would seem interesting would be to know, has Italy dealt with any other cases relating to cross-border claims for international protection? So we're going to choose that filter there. So now I'm only going to see the Italian cases. And right now in the beta version, we only have one. There are many Italian cases, by the way, from different levels. And I think this is an important point we want to highlight with the databases. This is not just going for the high-level appeal court or Supreme Court. It's valuable, in our view, to capture the breadth of litigation, so down even to the local level. And that's something that you even see in Italy. But so I've selected out that case. And now you can see here the snapshot of it. So you get a quick sense that this is a case about an adult male who's been trafficked from Pakistan to Italy in circumstances arising as a consequence of flood-induced adversity in an agricultural context. And there's a little bit more detail, but you think, okay, this is enough for me to know that I want to dive deeper. So I'm going to click on the hyperlink, and you get to this depth page. And there you will find more information about the case, including a link to the judgment. I'm not going to mess with fate and try to click there. It does open to the case in its original language. Here, that will be Italian. We also, using AI translation software, provide an unofficial machine edit translation into English for those cases. You can see some basic information about the case, country of origin, host country, type of mobility. I should say there's many filters. These all basically reflect filters, so you can choose. And I'll go back to that after I introduce this one case. You can see the hazards, some characteristics that might be relevant. Here's a bit of a description. We're not learning about this case today, so I'm not going to go into any depth, but you see generally what a case profile or case summary looks like. You can see the court, and then you can drop down into a narrative background that is drafted by the team working on this project, trying to pull out the core parts, because sometimes the climate or disaster dimension isn't the only part. So there's a curated component to it, so that we're pulling out something specific. Also with the summary of the arguments from both the applicant and by the state, a summary of the decision, some key quotes, which could be relevant, for instance, if you're bringing out, if you want to include reference to this case in your own legal arguments. There's also, and now there was, this is one of the ones why this is a beta version, there's a subsequent part, which doesn't show up on this one, which is exactly what Bella was talking about, which is how this is relevant to other kinds of litigation. And this one is particularly noteworthy in that regard. I wrote this, so I remember it, and it's talking about the specific possibility of people being able to establish eligibility for refugee status as members of a particular social group. So this category under Article 1A2 of the Refugee Convention brings people within the scope of protection there. But it's easy to talk about these in depth, but that's not the point of the introduction. It's more to say this is what the database looks at like. There's some graphics that also give you a taste of the number of cases or the distribution of hazards, for instance. And anyway, it's probably better for you to look at it yourself, but pay attention to the possibility to use these various kinds of filters. And do please remember that it's still the beta version. So I think that's all that I wanted to do in the time available. So I'll stop sharing and hand back over to probably Silvia.